but then I'm going to record right now. Okay. I think it was recorded before. I think it was, yeah, anyway, I think we should be able to record the session right now. So again, guys, this is a summary slide with the main tips for going through all the questions, okay? So let's move into the some past exam papers, and then I'll try to guide you through the all sorts of questions we have, all sorts of answers we expect from you, common mistakes, points that you need to pay more attention when sitting the exam. And then I'm happy to stop and take any questions as well. And if you have any questions for see regarding a particular question, you can just ask me to go back and see, or can you comment again about this particular question, okay? Let me just share this one now. Um, okay. I believe you should be able to see the, let me take this off. Okay, these past exams, right? Okay. We have a few samples. And then the structure is pretty much the same. But I'm going to pick see some questions from different papers and then provide you with some tips as well, okay? This one I think is May 2023, yeah. Uh, and this is section A, okay? As I mentioned, you should have 6 questions, and this is worth 40% of the final mark for the exam. Uh, and again, it tends to be more theoretical. It tends to be more on your basic understanding about data science concepts in general, some specific data science tools, and then ask you for see interpretation of some particular type of questions. Okay, you may have something like this. Oops, I think should be fine. Okay, you should have something like this. Okay, basically, I'm just going to get rid of some distractions. Okay, uh, including us. Good. So this first question is basically, usually we cover data structures, and then we ask you about your understanding about Python or R or both data structures, okay? And usually you have something like, let me pick this, something like this. You have a few variables or data structures. This can be a vector, a matrix, say NumPy array, a list, etc. Sometimes we can provide you some initial values, and then you have a few questions asking you to show what is the output, okay? And then you should go through the data structure. Uh, Most of the time, these questions will involve some sort of mathematical operations. Sometimes can be some comparison between different data structures, some sort of logical operators comparing different data structures. Uh, but the thing is, you need to show what is the output, okay? And in case you think this a particular question, a particular print command or a particular command will result in an error, most of the time we ask you to simply answer with error. You don't need to explain which kind of error. You don't need to provide any further comments. You just say, "Oh, this is an error." Okay. The other thing you need to pay attention to this question is basically whether you have some sort of dependency between two different variables or different data structures, and whether, let's say, one command will be changing a particular data structure or variable content, and then when you move to the next question, you should take this into account, okay? For instance, you have these initial values for A here, and then you have something like uh, we are just printing A, and then you say, okay, this is just printing A, elements in A, apply to some mathematical function, and then you need to double check whether this will be actually changing the content or in C of A, or it's basically picking the elements in A and applying some mathematical function and printing those elements, okay? But sometimes you should have uh, something like this, okay? So we are just changing some contents in this data structure C based on the contents on a previous data structure. So when you get this type of question, make sure you go through all these possibilities and you double check whether a previous command is changing the contents for a particular data structure, and then you need to take this into consideration when writing the outputs, okay? And then you should have 6 marks. Usually it's 4 questions, 1 mark. I would see 1 mark and a half. So it's kind of 1.5 marks for this one. Okay. But it's basically again data structures in Python on R. Okay. So make sure you revise all kinds of data structure uh, cover during the course. Okay. Then you should have something like yes or no. This can be related to again. Data visualization, machine learning models. This can be something related to a particular data structure, and then we provide you with some options, and you need to tell whether this is correct or not, or whether this is yes or no. Okay. Uh, and then again, it might be the case this will be asking for justification. In other cases, simply yes or no. It might be the case you have some negative marks apply to a wrong answer. So make sure you understand and you are sure about the answer you are providing. Okay. Again, 6 marks, 1.5 marks per question usually, and usually you have 2 questions uh, covering having pretty much the same structure. Okay. Yes or no, correct, incorrect, asking for justification or not, and applying some deduction. Uh, and of course, each question will cover different content, different aspects of the course, okay? But usually you have 2 questions using this with the same style, okay? Um, if you see, it's basically, and again, this is very theoretical type of question. So we ask about concepts, we ask about overall understanding for a particular topic covered during the course. If you see this question too, we were asking about um, which kind of plots, and this is a special case of heat maps. So whether you can use heat maps to uh, present, let's say, density of a single variable, or correlating 2 continuous variable, or you have 2 categorical plus 1/3 variable. Sometimes we mix, let's say, categorical with continuous variable, but this is about data visualization. The question 3 is about machine learning in general, so kind of going through the standard machine learning pipeline and asking about can be about data preparation, can be about training, testing, validation metrics, performance evaluation metrics, all sorts of things related to a standard machine learning pipeline, okay? Uh, Again, and then you may have something like these 2 questions as well. It's basically picking a given number of correct answers. Okay, so usually you have one question asking for up to 3 correct answers. Sorry, and you may have a second one asking up to 2 correct answers. Okay, and then the tip is basically uh, you don't have more than 3, you don't have more than 2. Okay, because this is the maximum options we are expecting from you to identify as correct. Okay, and usually what examiners do is basically they take the sequence of options you provide as your top 3. Okay, so in case you provide more than 3, we are going to take the first 3 and then mark this against the solution. Okay, so make sure you pick all them. Again, there is no negative marks, there is no justification, so it's safe for you to identify up to 3, up to 2. even if you are not 100% sure. Uh, but this will give you and improve your chance of getting correct marks, okay? Then you should have something like this. Uh, Usually we have one question about this, okay? It's basically your understanding about some common code chunks, both from Python and R. And usually you have, I cannot tell you in terms of distribution because this is a very, very, it's very, it's very variable. It says we have different approaches for this type of questions, okay? But the thing is, uh, we ask you to identify whether a particular command belongs to Python or R, okay? There is no way that a particular command will belong to both languages, even if they are very similar. uh, we always have some small difference between Python and R, and this perhaps is attached to the syntax. Okay, sometimes you have something like, oh, if I'm using brackets, this is from Python. If I'm not using brackets and use, let's say, a dot, oh, this is likely to be R. Okay, can be a bit tricky, but we tend to stick to most common libraries and commands, the ones that you may have seen during the course, something that appeared during the quizzes, or any small exercise we have in the course, okay? And then you can try to provide your answer following this kind of a pattern, okay? It's a kind of, okay, command one will be R, command two will be Python. You can have something like, you can be at least something like, sorry for my writing, it's kind of, but you can have something like, okay, this will be Python, and then you put something like C1, C2, etc. C is a kind of a list of commands you think belongs to Python, and you can do the same for R, okay? So the format is pretty much free, provided you can attach each command to a particular language, okay? And then you have 10 marks, is usually 1 mark per question. And again, we try to stick to the most common libraries and commands. You cannot expect, and you don't need to be afraid about seeing something very strange or something very particular, some kind of a very rare library or some unknown commands, okay? Because the idea is just to test your knowledge about, when you see some particular command, you have this kind of a very a quick understand, oh, this is Python, this is R. I recall this from most of my coding examples, okay? Good, so this is section A. This is pretty much the structure we have for section A. I can move to other paper just to uh, give you a few more examples, but it's pretty much about, so this is the October 2023, and you see it's pretty much the same structure. We have the same kind of questions, okay? Uh, Not much difference, to be honest, among the six questions. Then we have the 2021, 2022. I think this was a slightly different kind of exams because we did some improvements. Uh, but again, I think it's a kind of uh, the, pretty much the same type of questions as well. Uh, Going to some data structure in Python, asking you about correct, incorrect, or we used to use this kind of not possible, not possible, appropriate. Then we changed to correct, incorrect because it's easier to understand. Uh, then we have something like the same sort of thing, okay? So whether this is Python or R. So this is more or less what we will be finding in the uh, section A of your paper, okay? Then we have section B. And as I mentioned, again, 6 questions, but this tends to be more on the programming and interpretation sides of things. And usually you have a few more work to do. So it's safe for you to allocate a few more time to section B, okay? Because this will require you to interpret some coding, do some small coding, uh, simulate some situations, and then discuss a bit more in terms of your answers, okay? It might be the case you have something like this question one. We provide you with some code, and we ask you to transpose this or rewrite uh, from, let's say, one structure into another structure, okay? In this example, we are asking to move, let's say, from a for loop into a while loop, okay? So first thing you need to do is basically to understand what is happening with this code, okay? So what this code is doing, uh, and then you have this understanding, okay, so now I can think about how to transpose this from, let's say, one structure into another structure, okay? And then the second part will be, okay, so how can I write a while loop? Which kind of elements I need to specify when writing a while loop? Uh, so this is the second aspect of the question. The third aspect of the question, and all of this is attached to marking criteria, okay? The third aspect of this question will be for you to identify something like this. I have this kind of variable called n, and then I have some initialization, okay, with this of this variable, and then I have a second variable x sum above 10, which is also initialized with 0. So when you transpose this into your new code, make sure you have both initialization and declaration slash initialization comments, okay? Because this will be part of the marking criteria. Even if you are transposing to another code structure, you need to make sure you have all the necessary variables to make this new code work the same way as the previous code is working, okay? Then you should look into, okay, I have this for, and I know that for is a kind of a, see, a fixed amount of time. So I'm going to do this repetition for a given amount, see number of steps, because you have, let's say, the initial and the final value. I'm going to iterate, let's say, from 1 up to n. So this is a fixed amount of steps. So how do you transpose this into a while logic, okay? Because the while is more conditional, so you should have some sort of a condition testing whether you need to go to another iteration or not, okay? And this is perhaps the transposition trick here, because you need to move from see, a fixed amount of time versus a conditional amount of time, okay? Uh, and this may require you to declare some additional variables to control the loop and make sure the while loop will be working, see from 1 to n as well, but attach it to some sort of condition, okay? So make sure you understand the question first, make sure you identify all elements you need to specify on your new code, and then make sure you transpose this code and ensure this code will be working pretty much the same way as the original code, okay? And then you get full marks, okay? Again, usually we do not penalize for syntax errors. If you forget some brackets or semicolon, whatever, this is likely to not influence your final marks, but we do look into variables, the overall idea, and whether the code is doing pretty much the same as the original code, okay? Then you have a second question. Usually you have one question about databases. And this is historically the question where the students lose more marks, okay? So my advice for you, this is a very, very strong request. Spend some time revising databases, okay? Because again, historically, most students lose marks here, okay? It might be the case you are given with, let's say, one table, two tables at most, and these tables will have a few columns, usually 4 or 5 columns, because the idea is not to have a very complicated database scenario, but it's kind of a very specific scenario, okay? Uh, it might be the case that if you have more than one table, it's likely that these tables will be linked by some sort of foreign key, okay? So make sure you go back to your course materials and you revise the use of four INI keys. But the basic idea between four INI keys is because when you have four INI keys, you have some sort of relationship between tables, and this allows you to write queries using join. Okay, it's a natural way for you to combine information from different tables based on columns that share the same sort of information. Okay. Uh, it might be the case the columns will have different names. This really depends on the database model we are using. In this example, we have ID, so it's a very clear, oh, this is likely to be referring to the same type of information, and then you can rely on this ID column to make your join, okay? But in case you have different column names, but still you can see, oh, they are, see, this kind of a different names, but they refer to the same sort of information. I can still use them to join these two tables and write my query, okay? Then you are likely to have something like this question A, where we provide some sort of select, and we ask you, okay, what is the result? What is the output from this query? And then basically you go to the tables and you apply this query, and then your answer will be pretty much a table, and then you can just show what will be the results, okay? Uh, it might be the case you can write your answer using plain English and you say, oh, this query will be returning all elements from table A that match the condition, along with elements of C from table B, blah, blah, blah. You can just specify your understanding about this, okay? Uh, of course, if you manage to draw the table, the resulting table, it's easier for the examiner to check your answer because it's kind of a visual answer, and you can easily and quickly check against the solution file, okay? If you write your solution, this will also taken into consideration, and you are likely to get all marks as well, provided we can understand, okay, so this is what exactly, so the student will manage to write, write about all the elements that will be returned by the query, okay? So feel free to pick any form, but again, perhaps showing the table is your safest option to avoid any misinterpretation, okay? It might be the case you have a second query, perhaps touching something like aggregation functions or some other specific example. Perhaps you can have something like a join, uh, and then or subqueries, and then you need to go through the query and then provide your answer. Okay, so make sure you revise this kind of a SQL programming, and you understand all this type of queries. Make sure you revise about joining tables, left join, right join, this kind of operations you can use to mix information from different tables. Make sure to revise about aggregation functions because this is likely to appear in the exams as well. Uh, you may have one question asking you to show how to insert new data into a particular table, and this is mostly to test your understanding about insert into table commands, and how do you specify a particular command, okay? So revise this one as well. Uh, in some past papers, we have this kind of asking you to write a query uh, to return this particular table. So we provide you with some sort of results, and so how do you write a query to produce this particular results? And then you need to figure out how to structure your query. And then if you go to see if this is the intended result you need to solve, you should go back to the table and say, okay, how can I filter this one? Uh, so what is the criteria? Because I think the key point for you is to understand about the conditions. Okay, so what is the filter, or how many filters, and what are the filters I need to apply over the table or more than one table to generate this kind of results, okay? It might be the case you need to join tables to get both. See, because I need to produce the name column and eating solds, and then you go back and say, oh, name is here and eating solds is here, which means I need to join both tables to get access to both columns. And then you need to figure out, okay, which kind of filter I'm applying. And then you say, okay, I'm just applying some particular filter, okay? It might be the case a very, very simple filter instead of actually applying somewhere and filtering by particular conditions. It might be the case is just a join with some projection. So you manage to join two tables and then project or show some particular columns, and there is no further condition to be tested against the table, okay? It's just to figure out how to do it. And you are likely to have one question asking you to delete some data from the database. And then again, this is just for you to go to some delete from table. You need to check whether you can actually delete data from a particular table. Can be a very general query, something like, okay, a query that deletes the table product sales from the database, okay? And then you need to remember, okay, how can I delete a table from a database? And then you need to remember, okay, I cannot delete the table if I have some data there. So I need to delete all the data first, and then I can drop the table. And then you need to figure out, oh, I need to remove all data, make this table empty, and then I can go and ask to drop the table from the database. Okay, so it's a kind of a query. The thing is, you are likely to have one question covering database, and then you need to revise all the database module and understand all these ideas. Okay, and this is 10 marks. Okay, guys. Let me know if you have any comments or any question. I'm happy to take. Okay, just keep an eye. Okay, let me go back to this one. I think this is session A, right? For question 4 and 5, do we still get some marks if some of the three answers or two required are wrong? Again, yes, you get partial marks. If you ask you for three questions or two questions and you provide, let's say, one or two, you get see partial points for any correct answers, okay? Because these again the marking criteria is so the marking distribution let me go back this way. See, because usually 6 marks, and then if we ask you for three questions here, you are likely to get 2 points for each correct answer, and this one is two answers, then you get 3 marks for each answer. Okay, so any correct answer you get some partial marks. Okay, so there is no say full marks to the entire question or 0 marks. Okay, the other thing I forgot to mention, these questions where you have some sort of deduction, okay, so there is a cap of at 0. Okay, so in case let's say you are very unlucky and you provide all wrong answers, and then we start deducting points. It's usually see 1 point per wrong question, but we stop at 0. Okay, you don't get negative marks. Okay, but it's very hard. I think most of the time the students get most of them correct, and then lose a very few marks. Okay, I would say that the most common situation for losing marks is you forget to provide justification, even when the question is correct, because it's explicitly saying, okay, you should provide your answer and some justification. Then the students go there, uh, answer as correct or yes, and do not provide any justification, and then you get just partial marks. Okay, good. So let me go back to section B. So we talk about some C code rewriting, database stuff. You are likely to get something like this, a bunch of options. Okay, we are explicitly saying all these statements are wrong. So there is no way this will be correct. We are just saying, oh, everything is so written down here is so this is totally wrong, okay? But we ask you to explain why this is wrong, okay? And then again, usually 1, 2 sentences for you, and then is your chance to provide a very short answer, a very short explanation about your understanding based on, again, what you recall from the course, live sessions, discussion, any quizzes, etc. And sometimes it's something like, for instance, Pandas is an image manipulation Python module, and then you can say, no, Pandas is a library for this, okay? Or so your justification can be based on pandas. You can say, no, pandas is a library for manipulating data structures or an overall data structure. Or your answer can be attached to the image manipulation. You can say, no, image manipulation in Python can be done using, let's say, matplotlib or any other library. Okay, you have some freedom in terms of how do you structure your justification, because you know the question is, the statement is wrong, and then you can read the statement and you can pick any elements of the statement, the one you are more confident about. So no, I'm going to justify based on this, and you are likely to get full marks, okay? Because we expect different solutions, different kind of justification. There is no single justification, okay? Unless you have something like a vector in R is ordered and immutable. And then you should recall about vectors in R, and you can say, no, the vector does not need to be ordered, or the vector uh, is mutable. It means you can change elements. It can be any of the two or both, okay? So go ahead with all these questions. Try to remember as much as possible all your knowledge about all these questions, and try to provide your justification. And this is really a mixture of data structures, libraries, more theoretical questions. Uh, Sometimes you have something like some questions attached to GitHub packages, Git repositories, some sort of control version. Sometimes it's more on the as kind of a data structure. Uh, Sometimes can be something like IDEs or graphical environments you can use for programming. It's a very mixture of different questions, but all of them testing your understanding about this, all the contents. Then you should have something like this. Okay, it's a very classical question we have. Basically, you are provided with 4 commands and 4 outputs, and you need to match command to outputs. Okay, so and this is a one-to-one match. Okay, so there is no way the 2 outputs will be attached to one single command, or vice versa. Okay, usually you have a one-to-one mapping. And then again, this is usually based on some sort of mathematical or logical operation, and then you have outputs something like 0 and 1, meaning false, true, or you have something like picking a data structure, something like this NumPy array, and applying some mathematical operation, and what is the output based on this particular uh, uh, output, okay? Or the same here, you pick this kind of a data structure and then you apply some mathematical operation, okay? The thing is, you should provide something like, let's say, C1 is attached to, let's say, O3, C2 is 1, 1, this sort of outputs, okay? And then you are likely to get 2 marks for 2.5 marks for each question, okay? Then you reach question 5, which is usually about data visualization. Uh, and usually you are giving kind of a small data set, some metadata, 3 to 4 variables. And these variables, they are likely to be a mixture of categorical and continuous variable. And then we ask you, okay, what graphs you'll be used to demonstrate, let's say, some correlation between a pair of variables, okay? So usually this is the first question. We ask you to show some sort of correlation between 2 variables, and this again can be a mixture of categorical and continuous variable, okay? And this is to test your understanding about data visualization. And the thing you need to pay attention is this little s here, because we expect more than one plot, okay? More than one graph. And the marking criteria will be looking to this. because we are asking, okay, can you provide, let's say, two plots or up to three graphs you'll be using to show this particular uh, correlation? And then you, of course, you can start with the more classical one, the one you are more sure about. So, oh, okay, this is a continual variable. And the other thing you need to do is basically make sure you state what is your x and y axis. So the x axis will be, let's say, this particular variable. The y is another variable. So you make this explicit. Okay. You can write your answer in plain English. Uh, if you have some time and you want to do this one, you can just write as sorry, draw the graph as well. We had some students who draw the graph. So this is how the graph will look like. It does not need to be a very precise, okay? Can be say an approximation, but you can give some sort of visual representation as well. But most of the time you can just write your choice, and you can say, oh, I'll be using a heat map to show how this variable x will correlate with another variable y. You can comment on any scaling, or you can comment on any conversion between these variables, because sometimes you need to correlate, let's say, categorical with continuous, or sometimes you have continuous variables capture at different time scales, so you need to convert, let's say, from milliseconds to seconds or whatever. So you can just say, oh, I need to convert this first, and then I can just have a graph showing this correlation based on, let's say, milliseconds or seconds or any other metrics, okay? Then my second choice will be picking this second plot. You can tell about any transformations you'll be doing to be able to show the same correlation but using another graph. So because again, you are completely free to write your answer and think about what sorts of graph you are going to use, okay? So make sure to write all of these. Make sure to cover, if we ask you for two graphs or three, make sure you provide this answer, okay? Uh, and then the second is, this is not a good example because in the past we had kind of, okay, the first one is about data visualization, the second one is about uh, machine learning training. Usually the exams we have now, they ask you to, based on your previous answer to letter A, uh, they ask you to, okay, now you can think about some another scenario. Suppose you have the same problem as expressed in question A, but now we change the variable. Instead of, let's say, smoking and drinking, now you need to show correlation between another variable and this variable, okay? So usually we ask you to uh, adapt your previous answer to a new scenario, and then you need to think about the visualization, okay? And again, you have freedom to write about any assumptions, any data transformations before going to the data visualization part, okay? We try to capture your understanding about data visualization, any preparation steps you need to do before plotting information, and usually you are very free to choose any sort of plotting. You don't need to provide any code. You don't need to draw any plots. Again, you can do this if you wish, but it's fine if you just write your answer very clear, okay? And the last one should be something like writing a small piece of code for a particular type of question. Usually you are giving these options, as I mentioned, using R or Python or plain English. You can just pick any option, and then you should provide your small pseudocode or algorithm to solve a particular problem, okay? And this is usually a very small one, okay? Uh, the tip for this question is basically you read the entire question and you check for all the variables you have. So what kind of variables I need to manipulate in this code? Is there any constant value I need to declare? Because this is something like for any operations I need to do inside my code, I have some sort of constant value I need to check against. Uh, you can check whether this is a kind of a loop situation, and then you can decide for a for or a while loop. Uh, you can structure, if the code is slightly more complex, which is usually not the case, but in case you think, oh, this seems to be slightly more complex, I need a few more lines of code, you can structure your code in functions. I have this function, I have another function, because this will give you perhaps a better idea in terms of how to structure uh, the solution and address all the points you need to address. Okay, so feel free to structure your code, but remember, if you're going to for plain English, make sure you have a very clear sequence of steps, well written, so it's easier for the examiners to go through all the steps and check against the marking criteria. Okay, so this is more or less what we have. Uh, Let me see. Okay, so uh, if we don't ask for justification, you don't need to write any justification. Okay, so let me see if we have some other exams asking for justification. But when any justification is needed, so this will be explicitly written in the exam paper. So you need to provide some justification in one or two sentences. Okay, I think here. This kind of see explain in no more than two sentences. So this is asking you for justification. Let me go back to session A if we have something like justifying. No, I don't, yeah, I think we don't have anything related to justification. But in the past, this kind of a justification, they usually appeared on this type of question, okay? Whether you should provide yes or no, or correct and incorrect, and then you should have something like, and provide your justification in one or two sentences, okay? This will be explicitly stated in the paper, okay? Uh, Otherwise, you don't need to do anything else apart from this one, okay? I believe it's more or less all the types of questions we have. You have a bunch of past papers on Digital Campus. You can have a look on all these papers, okay? I'm very happy to take any other questions. See, from now up to the exams in 2-3 week time, if you have any other questions, you can just send this to your class teacher, you can just send this to me, and I try to provide you some feedback for you. Where is my slides? I think it's done right now. And I can try to provide support for you, okay, for any see last minute questions, okay, guys. So again, just to perhaps wrap up the session, and then again, uh, no easy way to prepare because it's a kind of a mixture of quantitative and qualitative questions, uh, a mixture of more theoretical questions and more applied questions. Uh, and then you have Python and R. So you have both languages. We understand this can be a bit tricky sometimes because you are just trying to remember uh, Python syntax, R syntax, some examples. Uh, but we have a very uh, see a fixed set of questions you may be asked to go through machine learning, training, testing, validation, performance evaluation, uh, databases, data visualization. So these are kind of a building blocks, okay? Uh, so make sure you revise all these theoretical concepts, common libraries and commands. You still have time to do some practical quizzes we have. Uh, as I mentioned, you can engage with some past paper. You can try to answer all the questions from the past paper, and then you check against the solution files because you should have the solution files as well. Okay. Uh, and I think it should be fine, okay, guys? So there is no much you can do, and the idea of the exam is not to be very complicated. It's just to check your overall understanding about all these points, okay? Uh, I think this is for yeah, I think this is more for online students, but it might be the case this applies to you as well, uh, in terms of filling out your answers. Um, Make sure you have your candidate number in all pages. Make sure you have the question number and letter. So if you have, let's say, this is question 4, letter A, and then you have see, kind of your answer, okay? And you state this very clear in your documents because it's easier for the examiners to find your solutions as well. Of course, you don't need to follow the same order. You can just answer all questions in any order, but make sure you have the question number and any letters, okay? So we can just easily find your solution. It might be the case that you should be asked to show calculations, uh, and then make sure you have some calculations, okay? So most of the time this is not required, but in some cases it might be asked. Uh, it's fine for you if you have some wrong calculations uh, or something that you just, let's say, uh, misunderstood. You can just place an X or something. You can just say, okay, this is something like, okay, invalidating my answer, and then you go to the next page and do everything again. Okay, just clear, sign this very clear on your papers and say, oh, this is uh, can be disregarded because it's kind of a wrong answer, and I'm going to do this in another page, okay? And as I mentioned before, uh, you can write some small statements as well in terms of providing any assumptions for any particular question. If you read the question and you think the question is not clear, you can write a small note to the examiner. Oh, I understood this question this way, or I'm assuming this particular condition, and here is my answer. Okay, and then we'll be taking this into consideration as well. If for us, it's very useful because we can revise the question whether the question is clear or not, or is there any points that we need to improve for this particular question. Okay, uh, I think it's this. Make sure you are aware of any generative AI. I think it's not the case because you'll be sitting for the exams, but make sure you have all these requirements clear. Yeah, and then we have a few more resources you can check. I can share these slides on Digital Campus, and then you have all the links, etc. But these are some links we use to provide to students. They are still relevant for most of the papers you'll be seeking for. So you can just go ahead and have a look on these links, okay, guys? And I think it's fine. You have my contact, and if you have any other questions, you can just ask right now, or you can just write me later, and I'm happy to try to give you some prompt feedback and timely answer, or point to someone who is more capable than me to write to you, okay? Good. Do you have any other questions? Otherwise, we can just finish the session. And I'll check about the recording, whether this will be available, and put some information on Digital Campus as well, okay? Um, because I didn't record since the beginning, but I can because we ran the same session 2 weeks ago for all the online students. It's pretty much the same tips, and then I can put both records for you as well. Or you can send me an email and I can try to send you back the link to the recording. Okay, good. Okay, guys. So thanks for joining. Wish you all the best on your exams, and then I'm very happy to help you and address any last minute questions. Just drop me an email and let me know of any questions. Okay. See you then. Bye bye.